There we go. Hi, welcome to Comic Beat Insider, the mashup streaming podcast that examines media, classic TV, just stuff that we like. So, welcome. I am Heidi MacDonald. I am the editor in chief of The Beat at comicsbeat.com, the news site of comics culture.
And I'm I am Jimmy Aquino, the host, producer, etc. of Comic News Insider, the weekly podcast since 2005 covering comics, TV, film, and pop culture.
And today we are joined by Edie.
Hi, I'm Edie Nugent. I am a freelance writer and a staff writer at The Beat.
And I'm Ricardo Serrano. I write for The Beat as well, and I have a Spanish comic book podcast called Se Habla Comics.
All right.
Excelente.
So this, I'm not going to do that. All right, let's get my little. I forgot. I'm running a little behind today, so let me get my little jack-o'-lantern.
Yeah.
There we go. We got to get the Halloween because I don't know. Now, Jimmy, your favorite holiday is Christmas, right?
Yes.
But
absolutely.
mine is Halloween.
I get it. A lot of people's Christmas is Halloween. I get it.
Yeah, exactly. So, so this all month we've been looking at horror classics and or horror comedy classics or a different array. So let's see. We did Lost Boys. We did Garth Marenghi.
Mm-hmm.
Last week we did Beetlejuice, and this week we're doing a real classic, 1964, Roger Corman's The Masque of the Red Death, which many think is the apotheosis of Corman's collaboration, not only with Vincent Price, the classic, but also Edgar Allan Poe. He did this whole series of Edgar Allan Poe adaptations, which are just a delight for us Halloween aficionados. I mean, I dare say they are a Halloween tradition for some of us of a certain age, perhaps. But yes, and as we like to go around and talk about our first introduction to this film. So I saw this. So as a kid growing up, you might have picked this up if you've been watching Comic Beat Insider every week. I grew up in the New York area. Channel 9 and Channel 7 had movies. Channel 9 and Channel 11 had the classic Chiller Theater, very famous series of horror movies, and they would show these Roger Corman films all the time, and Masque of the Red Death is one of them. So I saw it as a kid, and as a child, it was very disturbing.
I bet.
Very disturbing. And of course, I was obsessed with it. I've pretty much been obsessed with this movie ever since I first saw it. And, it's haunted my dreams. And so it's fun to rewatch it. So yeah, that's me and The Masque of the Red Death. And Jimmy?
Yeah, I obviously am a huge fan of Poe. And I'll maybe share some pictures later of when I was in a horrible musical called Poe, where we play different vignettes, and I was actually Prince Prospero in one of the scenes. So there you go. I'll share those a little later. But yeah, I'd never seen the movie. I'd heard of it, but and I know Corman was a big Poe fan, did a lot of Poe stuff. So I was excited to see it. And I'm glad I did, because yeah, we got lots to talk about for sure.
Yeah.
So I got into Edgar Allan Poe when I was maybe like 11 or 12, and we started reading it in school, and it had a very profound effect on me. But I had never seen this movie until you told me to watch it for this kind of video. But I was like, Vincent Price, Roger Corman, Edgar Allan Poe, I'm in. So this was quite an experience. I'm looking forward to talking about it.
Awesome. I love it when we introduce, when through this series, we're able to introduce people to cool stuff. Ricky.
Yeah. I saw it years ago. I don't even remember when was the last time I saw it, but I did get into Edgar Allan Poe by, like, when I was a kid, I would use crayons on my dad's comics and books. So I would color them and tear them up, but I was a kid, so I'm allowed this kind of destruction. And I had a book that was called Tales of the Supernatural, of Suspense in the Supernatural. It's a very thick book, and that's where I read my first Edgar Allan Poe story, which was Murder at Rue Morgue. And yeah, I believe so. And then that was it. I was hooked into horror. I think that was the only story I didn't like splatter crayon all over. And so the rest is history.
So wait, Ricky, was this an illustrated version of the Poe stories?
No, that was I think the book was my mom's, and it was like a very thick book,
Right.
and I later found out that it's considered like one of the great horror anthologies because it collected like a lot of classics in one volume.
Oh, okay. It wasn't all Poe. It was different stories.
No, that's where I also learned about H.P. Lovecraft and August Derleth and a lot of the other ones.
It became an illustrated classic after you got through with it.
Right. Well, there. Yeah. Well, no.
I was the artist in the book.
Well, that's interesting because actually we had. Damn, I should have gotten it, but it's actually buried a bit beneath some other books, so I can't blame my.
No, I see it right there. It's the 10th one down to the right.
No, it's not. There's growing up, we had a Tales of the original Poe was Tales of the Imagination and Mystery and Imagination. And it was the famous edition illustrated by Harry Clarke. Now, does anybody know who Harry Clarke is?
No.
So this book is super famous, man. I should have like done some screen sharing because his illustrations, he was a contemporary, turn of the century. He's a contemporary of like, boy, now I can't remember. Aubrey Beardsley. I would say if you know Aubrey Beardsley's work, he's very, very comparable. But his stuff is so creepy. Like in all this book, it's like there's Poe has this obsession with rotting corpses, and there has never been anyone who drew rotting corpses.
I'm looking at it right now. Wow.
Yeah, right.
Ooh.
Okay. You know what? See if you could get one of those up on the screen there, Jimmy. Because
I can just do this.
Let's see. Let's see if Jimmy. Oh, I have to allow you. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna allow you multiple participants. Yes. There you go.
Okay, so share screen. Let's go to, this is just the Google images here. So
yes, there you go.
Oh, it's just like a.
Oh, now we're on Etsy.
Yeah, that's what it took me to. We're gonna go shopping, so you can sort of see just random.
Stuff. Oh wow, look at that.
Stuff,
yeah. His stuff
looking at it as well.
Yeah, like it's intense woodcut sort of Art Nouveau, Art Deco.
Yeah. Oh, here, go down to this one with the black cat. See, there's one that's that. No, one over to the that one. Do that one. Oh yes, where they open up the wall and find the rotting body with the dead cat on it.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So I saw that as a kid. And there's actually another one which I don't see on the screen where it's like I believe the caption is upon the bed was a loathsome pile of unimaginable putrescence, and it's like this rotting corpse on the bed and all this kind of willowy Art Nouveau style with like the gore dripping out. So yeah, this was sort of
I'm gonna stop sharing.
Definitely look at Harry Clarke, Edgar Allan Poe. Google that image search. That's what Jimmy just did, and it is wild.
Yeah. So anyway, so that was my first introduction to Poe, and this book was just I believe actually, Ricky, my first story that I read was also The Murders at the Rue Morgue. I think it's the first story in the book, and I read all the stuff. It has all of them, and this is a very famous book actually. I mean, Clarke's illustrations for Edgar Allan Poe are very famous. This edition of the book, and I retrieved this book from my grandmother's house, and which is good because there was a fire, so I saved the book. I actually do own it still, and so yeah, very, very impressionable child. Not.
I haven't been to it yet, but I think in Philadelphia you could go to Poe's house or something.
It might be Baltimore.
Virginia, actually.
Yeah, but there's something in Philadelphia.
Virginia. Okay. I mean, he has a house in New York too. I mean, so there's a street named after him. Then there's a house that's like in the Bronx. Like I don't know. He got around apparently.
yeah.
Well, I think he's the most influential American horror writer, right? Like, I mean, so many people take from him. My personal favorite is always Richard Matheson, but right after Richard Matheson, it's Edgar Allan Poe because the dude just did no wrong. It was great. Every story was so great.
Well, they say even in this movie that like not only is it obviously we realize it's not just Masque of the Red Death, there's also another Poe tale incorporated, the Hop Frog tale, but there's also another subplot drawn from Torture by Hope by Auguste Villiers de Lardum, who was a huge fan of Poe and very heavily influenced. You could tell by his writing. I actually read the short story, the Torture by Hope, and I was like, oh, this is so Poe. Like he was such a Poe biter, but he seemed to clearly enjoy Poe. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, of course, he was a famous poet. Also, I mean, the Raven, quote the Raven, never wore the
I have a
classic.
Raven tie.
Nice. Yeah, and guess what? Baltimore is they've kind of adopted him as their mascot, and the football team is called the
Ravens,
Baltimore
right?
Ravens. I think it's probably the only football team named after a poem. So, which is pretty cool. I mean, I love Baltimore. Actually, Edie, it's Baltimore Comic-Con week, or would have been.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I know. It's like, oh, wow.
I was supposed to go last year for my first time ever. And then it ended up, I forget exactly what happened, but ended up not going and was like, oh, we're going this year. It's like in the calendar. Nope.
Funny how that worked out. Yeah, but Jimmy, you go to there.
I've gone off and on. Yeah, I think
Yeah.
the last time I went was like a couple years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, like some friends of mine and I, like Paul, and we try to go like a few years in a row, and we have a really good time. It's a good, yeah, it's always fun. Very expensive, but
Yes.
good.
Yes, but yeah, always a lot of fun.
Good crabs, that's for sure.
Oh yeah, the crabs. But anyway, but also, it's a quirky city, and I can see why they've taken Edgar Allan Poe to their heart there.
Yeah.
For
sure.
So, but obviously, huge influence. Now, Edie, were you a Poe fan as well, or?
Yeah, I mean, we started studying Edgar Allan Poe when I think I was in 7th grade, so I was 11 or 12. And I was super, super into it. It was kind of great because I went to this school that the Cathedral School up on 110th in Amsterdam. So you're sort of in a Gothic building and you're reading Edgar Allan Poe, and it was very atmospheric. And I was in the choir at that point. So I was doing a lot of like late rehearsals in the darkened Gothic cathedral, and I'm studying Edgar Allan Poe. It was just...
You could have been in that bad musical with me.
What a time to be alive, to be a kid and have no responsibilities and the privilege to just like go to your mindscape. And he was so good at creating atmosphere and weird feelings as you read it. I had a lot of weird experiences reading Poe at that age that felt supernatural to me. They felt like I felt like I had the same experience the first time I read Call of Cthulhu, where you feel like you're in an altered state. And I think that really great storytelling can do that. And it's really exciting.
I had that with my first Archie comic. Yeah.
I would say also,
my Poe tie.
Was it a double digest?
Yes, it was. Like the whole.
Beautiful.
Oh, that's so cool.
That's
Beautiful
cool.
tie he's showing us with a raven and all the text.
Yeah,
I know. So, but Ricky, you've always been a horror fan, because that's your thing, isn't it?
Yeah, I think one of the stories my parents told me, which feature heavily in this episode, apparently. I went to the first horror movie I saw, I believe, was Creepshow.
Oh, really? Oh, nice.
Like when I was a baby, and my mom had to leave the theater because I was crying throughout the entire movie. And I think I've been watching horror since I was inside the belly. And once I came out, between my dad's horror comics and my mom's a super fan of Stephen King, I've always been surrounded by it. So I actually kind of had the same experience as Edie with Call of the Cthulhu as well. Like you kind of read it and you're outside of yourself a little bit, and you're trying to make sense of all of the descriptions and stuff that H.P. Lovecraft is just trying to give you, and you're trying to piece it together, and it's just amazing. But then, oddly enough, in Puerto Rico, Edgar Allan Poe is studied, even if it very briefly, as part of like the classics of literature that you're supposed to read as part of English American literature because of our political situation. So thanks to us being a colony, Edgar Allan Poe was in our lives quite a bit. So there's always a silver lining.
Yeah. For sure.
So anyway, so Roger Corman, I mean, I'm thrilled to do this episode, not only talk specifically about this movie, but about Roger Corman, because he is absolute, like, essential of cinema. And like, think what I mean, first off, I mean, he made all these kind of B movies. He was the king of the B movies, but he made them so well. But he just was also a mentor. He discovered so many people, like Jack Nicholson appears in one of his early movies, Martin Scorsese, Francis Ford Coppola, Ron Howard. There was a few echoes of Willow, like Willow, like actually, I believe Ron Howard did one of his first movies with Roger Corman. And, so, I mean, he just discovered all this insane level of talent. And, I sent around a little interview with him. He seems to have been just, kind of this genial fella. And he's still alive. He's 94 years old. I did not realize that Roger Corman is still with us. Yeah. And so
I interviewed him a few years back at Comic-Con for that remake of the Attack of the 50-Foot Cheerleader or Woman, whatever it was. It was like him and his two young starlets interviewed at Comic-Con, like at this like steakhouse, or no, like at the hotel, like in this restaurant area. And he was, like you said, he's very, very just happy and really laid back. He's really cool and chill and like about everything. And that was only like maybe 4 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah, it was later on. I ran into them at the steakhouse. We just had dinner, and they were in the bar area, him and the starlets and some of the crew. And I wanted to say hi because I just interviewed that day, and I know they had a ton of interviews that day. But, I'm dressed up as always. I have my little vest and tie. And I'm like, oh, hey, guys, good to see you again. And one of the little starlets were like, oh, are you our waiter?
Well,
and I was like, well, I'm going to delete that interview. So,
yeah.
And then the other one was like, no, and I think it was Roger said, no, he doesn't today. I was like, the 90-year-old you remember you, but not you, the 22-year-old young.
Wouldn't it be amazing if you'd also been like, and I also am your waiter?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It's had it
here for it could have been possible had it been New York Comic-Con. It could have been possible.
Yeah.
Bartender, Jimmy, hi.
There was actually this is tangential, but one time I was at a restaurant here in New York, and then I won't name who it was, but then a very familiar comics figure actually shows up, and he's like, oh, he was working as a waiter at that store. I had no idea that he did this as a sidelight. So anyway, but yeah, okay. So going back, I guess I must have seen this movie when I was 10 years old the first time.
Wow.
And first off, the thing about it, I mean, Corman was known for his visuals. So he started making these Poe adaptations and went to England and using the English facilities, and they were getting more and more spectacular. But this one is just off the charts. I mean, I think the pacing of the movie is a little bit turgid by modern standards, but the visuals, you just can't stop watching it. And Nicholas Roeg, a famous director in his own right, was actually the DP on it, and their collaboration was very fruitful. So
I saw Don't Look Now like a week ago. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And that's Nicholas Roeg directing, and it was great to see this. Sorry, Heidi.
No, it's okay. Everybody just jump in with their thoughts, because so I guess when I saw it first, I mean, I was obsessed. Okay, I was obsessed with the story of the little people in here, and also the whole torture. I mean, watching it again, just like there's a lot of brutality in this movie, like, and a lot of implied brutality that we don't see, that's even more horrifying. And of course, couldn't be more timely.
Well, like from the original story itself, there's that great line from the original Poe: there are some who would have thought him mad. His followers felt that he was not. What? That seems pretty timely.
Yeah.
Familiar.
Yeah. And of course, Prospero. So for those who haven't seen it or read the story, it's about Prospero is an Italian duke. He has his castle. There is a plague ravaging the land, and he believes that he is he's also a Satan worshiper. He's incredibly cruel, and he's all holed up in his castle thinking, no problem, I'll never get sick here.
I'll just close the door.
Just close the door. Nothing could happen. And we see he befriends, kidnaps this young girl, Francesca, played by Jane Asher, young, beautiful Jane Asher.
She was like 18 at the time, I think.
Just around the time she met Paul McCartney. Yeah. And actually it was around the time, so no comment, but and she is brought in, and then we also meet Juliana, his I guess wife, lover, I don't know.
They just love her, they say,
but they're all Satanists, and they're all competing, like Juliana and Prospero are competing to see who loves Satan more. And meanwhile, Francesca is Christian, so there's really a lot of conversation about Satan versus God and salvation. And the subplot, and then her boyfriend Gino is also being tortured in the castle, and
her father,
Ludovico,
Ludovico.
And then there's also this evil fella played by Patrick McGee that he's quite evil. And two little people who are, everybody's kind of just dancing to entertain Prospero, and who will live and who will die.
Well, that's the thing about, like I said earlier, like it definitely strays from the story, because like obviously in the story, Prospero's not a Satanist, and and he does, and I read the story of Hop Frog as well. Like that's just basically that little subplot is that whole separate story where he gets his little thing, and also to make it a little creepier. Yes, Hop Toad in this story was a dwarf, but the little girl was an actual little girl. She was literally an 8-year-old. Because I looked up, like, oh, she was born 8 years ago. Oh, she was just a little girl. She wasn't a dwarf. So that was a little creepy when I found that. I'm like, I mean, they didn't make it like there was one moment when Hop Toad had his arm around her for a second, but I'm like whatever. But it was like the innuendos by his friend and all the stuff. I was like, it's super creepy. It obviously wasn't her voice when she was speaking.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. It wasn't her voice.
Yeah,
I think that made it creepier for me.
I feel like in the original story, Jimmy, because I skimmed it. I reread.
I just reread it earlier. Yeah.
Yeah, I reread Masque of the Red Death. That's very short, by the way. And if you want to have some fun for creepy Halloween, it's real for free online. You can Google it. And it's a real quick read, and it's wonderful. I mean, it's just beautiful the way it's written. But atmospheric, all the good stuff. But I think in Hop Frog, they say that she's a little girl. And he's a little person. I was thinking, oh God, no, it was meant to be a little girl, right? Because I had the same thought. They just couldn't. They didn't find a little person who was going to do this role, so they dress up and they change her voice. But like, I think they maybe just changed her voice because it's too creepy otherwise.
Yikes!
Yeah,
because Prospero does say
pure.
And Prospero makes that comment to what's his name's character, McGee's character, about like something about like, oh, you like things like that or something like that. I was like,
when they're dancing and you kind of see McGee's character.
Yeah, the way
like,
oh, you like that or something like that. Ooh.
Yes.
I was surprised.
Oh, go on, Ricky. Sorry.
No, I was surprised that for it came out, 1968?
64,
yeah.
I was surprised by how like cruel Vincent Price character is, and just the sheer amount of cruelty on screen for a movie from the 60s. It was pretty harsh. Like I can't imagine what it would have been like to see it back then, and then just come out of this very disturbing movie and say that was like very brutal and visceral. Like there's not a single thing, and the Satanist aspect of the entire movie kind of makes it even darker. Like you have these people are all competing for Satan's love, and then you have like flashes of the Marquis de Sade stuff happening as well, and then you have all this overarching theme of like, well, this is what happens when someone has way too much power and is ignorant of all the things around them, which brings us to today's world. But I don't know if you guys also got a little, maybe connected it a little bit to the NXIVM stuff as well.
I totally wrote NXIVM in my notes.
Yes.
Yes.
When
I wrote her NXIVM brand looks kind of good. It actually, it kind of looks cool. Not that I advocate branding, but
I will admit that I'm watching the HBO documentary. So
same.
Kind of like fresh in my mind.
I listened to a podcast too that I can recommend for you. There's a great NXIVM podcast that CBC Canada did. That's really
Uncover.
Yes, Uncover. Yes, so good. Anyway.
But to Heidi's point, really quick, the colorful aspects of it, I was for some reason struck by the colors of the candles. We had blue candles and green candles, and it wasn't just like the white and the classic red. Like someone went out and bought a ton of candles and said, we have to use different colors. It's gonna look great. I'm thinking it's Nicholas Rogue. Maybe they sent him to like a Walgreens or something. And that was the weirdest candles you can, and put them up. But
I'm sure it had to do with like eventually you see later on because in the of course original story each room has a different color, so maybe that had something to do with that. Each color represented, and you see the various figures at the end in different colors representing each of those colors.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was beautiful for sure. It was really beautiful to look at. To your point about the Satanist thing, Ricky, is like, and how cruel he was. I'm like, I just didn't like the Satanist subplot. I don't think it was necessary because you can be a cruel ruler without being a Satanist, and I felt that was enough. And the whole Satanist side thing, I did like Juliana a lot, and I did like what she like brands herself with the upside down cross thing. It's like, didn't scream. She's just like, yeah, I'm the devil's bride. What's up? What's up? That's right. I got this, but I just felt it was like kind of an unnecessary little character thing, but
Okay. I would say, and I'm sorry for hogging the time.
Mm-hmm.
Really quick, I'll just say that I think that has to do more with the type of horror that was being seen, especially in England, where Satan was everywhere. And I did read that Corman's Edgar Allan Poe movies were very much a hit in the UK.
They were in the UK, yeah.
And so you have all these movies. You have Hammer that's on the horizon as well, and already producing stuff. The Devil Rides Out, and for some reason in the UK during the 60s, Satan was rampant, and I
were
think,
like, yeah.
Yep. So I think that has to do a little bit more with what was famous or trending at the time.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah. So Edie, it was your first time seeing it. So what were some of your thoughts and impressions?
Oh man, I made a lot of notes. There are so many visuals that sort of popped out. One of them was right in the beginning when they're going through the village, and sort of his Prospero's like grand cart is pulling up into this village that is around his castle. They set the town on fire, right? He basically says, you know what? Clearly there's some Red Death here. Let's just burn the whole place to the ground.
Yeah.
I'm going to save this really hot teenager that, begged me to spare her father and her lover. And we're just going to get out. And they have this focus on a burning cross at one point. And I just thought that was such an amazing image to show in 1964. When burning crosses were, still a thing that were happening. And the horror of that just jumped out at me because of the time period it was in. I felt like there were a lot of little kind of Easter eggs like that pulling from things. And I feel like what you're saying, Ricky, is really true. Like the Satanist thing was really big in the mid 60s on through the 70s and like into the 80s, the whole Satanist thing. It just, it's it really started as a moral panic, I think, in the 70s, but like this was something people were thinking about, and it was kind of boogeyman. It's sort of standing in for corruption.
Yeah.
Like we know now that you can just show like a faceless corporation and we all see that as this is corruption, clearly. Yeah. But I think in 1964, that wasn't necessary. We were still sort of trusting business and capitalism, and it was very American and sort of nationalistic. Trust capitalism and not be like the Reds. And so
that's true. We were coming off the Red Scare. Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Have a rich person who's owning a lot of land, just like torturing people. I wonder if that was maybe why they leaned in rather to the Satanist angle some.
Oh, okay.
But just to really like show that corruption.
And don't forget rock music as well.
Oh
you
yeah.
have all of these new bands coming up.
Yeah, that's true.
Reed was becoming the new it
He does
thing.
say God is dead a couple of times.
Yeah. And so
that was like a whole thing. Yeah.
And these rock bands were also like really leaning into their myths, like, oh yeah, like the Doors or Led Zeppelin or whatever. Yeah, we all rock out with Satan after midnight.
Play the record backward, you're gonna hear it.
Exactly.
Satan has the best parties. Whatever, man. Come on.
Well, this party's a hell of a party. Hell of a party. Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. No, but it was really wonderful. And Vincent Price is just, I want to find every other one of these movies and watch them that he's in. He sells it so wonderfully, and he's having such a good time just being that person.
But Vincent Price, like I think later in life he became very campy. Obviously, I mean, excuse me, whether narrating thriller or all the he became this campy horror figure, and you do see some of that campy element in these Corman films. Also, I mean, let's face it, there's always a little bit of campiness about Vincent Price, and yet he's evil and sinister as well. I mean, what is it? He's this really great duality to him, doesn't he?
Well, he has this great what I love about the thing with Francesca, while he was seducing her, it was more like he was seducing her to the dark side, not sexually though.
Mm-hmm.
Like he was just no, I'm going to convert you to Satanism because of your he rips a cross off or takes it from her, and just the way he talks to her is just seduction. This little dance he has, and there's that great moment when he takes her out and with his little pet falcon that kills a bird, and he says for the first time, "My master," and she goes, "What do you mean?" And he says, what is it? Lord of the Flies.
Lord of the Flies.
And something else. But then he goes, Satan, the Lord of the Flies, a fallen angel. And then he almost whispers a mouse, the devil. It was such a weird, it was such a cool choice, but a weird choice that he loudly says, Satan, Lord of the Flies. And I was like, it made him more creepy and menacing, but also kind of funny at the same time. And I was like, all right. But yeah, so it was just this nice little dance of seduction he had with Francesca, and then even Juliana got in on it, where she was kind of like, no, I'm gonna convert it. She was jealous of her, but also at the same time maybe I can work with her as well. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I wonder as well. There's some allegories here, and what are they going to show in 1964? Mm-hmm. And making this movie an even harder sell. But they show this, young woman who's wearing a cross, and then she's in a bed chamber, mm-hmm. and he rips the cross off her neck, and then where the cross was, there's blood, and I'm like, mm-hmm. I'm feeling some allegories of this whole give your soul to Satan and join with Satan being.
While she's in a bath, maybe it's a baptism of
code for I'm gonna make you not a virgin anymore, steal your purity or corrupt you. But it's wonderful because it just sort of plays like you were saying, Heidi, how it haunted your dreams. I totally get that because there's so much kind of dreamlike imagery that just floats through it and doesn't explain itself. It just leaves you to kind of feel it. And that's really cool. I loved that about it.
And I think as a kid, I was really drawn. I mean, all kids. I mean, we've certainly talked on this series, a lot of movies that Jimmy loved as a kid and everything. And one thing that we all love as a kid is those details, that let our imagination run free. And I even, like you mentioned, the Falcon. I mean, there's so much background stuff in here. There's a lot of world building and just, beauty. I mean, everything's just so beautiful. The bed chambers with their flowing curtains and, the clothing, the costume design is insane. And so I guess just as a kid, it wasn't only I mean, there's a lot of cruelty we see directly on screen. There's a lot of perversion that is really strongly hinted at. So that really had, was pretty shocking to a kid. And then all of this, imagery and imagine, everything that's going on in the castle. So yeah, I mean, I think it's all of that makes it such a full. There's a lot to it. There's just so much to it. And then of course the visuals.
Exactly. Plus the party itself looks like an orgy with clothes on as well.
Yes.
So that there's a lot of. It's interesting because I didn't find it as sexual as I thought it was going to be. It is kind of like the corrupting of this girl's soul more than just taking her virginity away, Right. There's an aspect of it and there's an allegory of it as well, but just how you can actually go beyond innocence to really, really, really screw with someone is kind of tricky, and it is kind of, unsettling in that sense. And I think it's also one of the best written of the Poe movies that Corman directed or produced, because I remember his the Raven movie it kind of turned into a comedy with the Raven, and it wasn't really that great. But I actually compare it a lot with The House of Usher, which I really love. And I'm thankful that Richard Matheson wrote as well. In The House of Usher, you kind of see there's Corman really, really liked that story. And so there are a lot of things that I think carry over to the Red Death, because you kind of see that the same set designs and this more colorful aspect of the story, and you kind of feel like Corman takes those two movies more seriously than the others in some aspects. So you kind of like Corman is laying his soul bare with those two movies in particular.
Mm-hmm. Which have you seen all of the? I have seen them all, but I have to be honest, not in a long time. Have you? But you've seen them all too?
No, I haven't seen them all. I've seen like the two that I just mentioned and The Raven.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
The Raven I kind of suffered through.
I think The Raven's a little bit painful, even though it has young Jack Nicholson in it. They, like I said, this would be like Chiller Theater. They'd show them when I was growing up. I think they also had The Black Cat was also shown, which of course I was into because I love cats. And it's a little, they're all of a piece, but I think you're right. I do remember House of Usher, and I do think, Corman made one more Poe movie after this, The Tomb of Ligeia, and that was it. After that, he was like, I'm done with Poe, but he'd made like 5 or 6 of them. So, speak of the devil, here's the Black Cat.
I know, you said Black Cat, and the Black Cat butt just appeared behind
Come on, Charlie, get in here, get in the shot. But, I mean, obviously it was a very fruitful, collaboration. Vincent Price is in all of them as well. But I agree, Ricky. I think the script in this one had a lot more meat to it.
Yeah. Also, did you? I don't know if it was just me or something, but did you guys notice like there was a lot of hints and maybe like tiny cameos of other stories from Edgar Allan Poe? So like you have the Raven and
the Raven. Yeah.
You have the gorilla. Exactly. And then
the
you have
clock is in the original story, funnily enough. I actually went and looked that up because I was like, this is like Pit and the Pendulum, in the clock having that axe swinging. But it's actually described in the original story of Masque of the Red Death, which was written before the Pit and the Pendulum.
Well, but he definitely, Poe had a lot of obsessions.
He was Easter egging his own future story. So
he was creating this. This is the Avengers of it.
Yeah, I love it. He has a universe, it's like,
he has a universe.
I mean, I think people that build universes are often create the most fertile ground for people to make adaptions, because you're giving sort of a loose continuity for people to play in the margins of. So that's great. I mean, you see that with, all the people like Lovecraft or Tolkien or anybody that, builds a universe. I noticed that in the Raven attacking her is so great. I was like, the Raven's revenge,
Yeah.
Oh, you mean it was the Falcon killed her, right? That
Falcon?
Yeah, it was the same Falcon that I'm pretty sure. I think it's the Falcon death, and and that scene was ridiculous. It was like the birds, Hitchcock's bird just like going that's something red all over her.
It is pretty.
It was hilarious. It made me laugh. I was like, oh,
I will say that for all the reputation of these movies being like schlocky horror, because they were made for AIP, which was the Blumhouse of the day, and I was to say Blumhouse is the AIP of today, really more because it was so influential. But it's not like there's these incredible action scenes in this movie. I mean, the editing, I will say, is probably the least skillful part of this film. It is true. Like, there's obviously somebody with a bird, and then it is a court, and it's like, then they cut to somebody shaking a bird.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a good little fight, good little sword fight in the
there was some good. There was some good. There's some escapes and some stuff, but it wasn't that it was. It wasn't that visual. But I mean, of course, Corman's later movies, Death Race is one probably his best known movie aside from this, and he got into, he could do it all. He was really like I mean, he was just such like I say, he's still alive, but he's been retired for quite a while. But he's just such a solid filmmaker.
Yeah, I think he knows how to make the best of everything, really. Like, for example, in this movie, in Red Death, you clearly know that there's not like millions of dollars behind it. So in some parts, when you kind of don't have enough to show in the background, he puts the camera very close up to the actors. So you don't really have to like, pay attention to everything that's behind.
Yeah, lets him do the work. Yeah.
Exactly. And in that sense, he's very theatrical, I think. Like he kind of knows very well how to play around with the setting and space and blocking and all that stuff. I heard all of these terms from my brother, so I don't entirely know what they mean, but I know they're movie vocabulary. So, but I really appreciate that about Corman, because Corman is like, he's a director that you're gonna see movies that he made whether you want to or not, just by nature of horror. Like once I started talking about horror with other people and they mentioned Corman, I was like, I don't think I've ever seen a movie by Corman. And then they start mentioning movies and I had seen like 10. And they didn't know that I had seen them. And it's because he was so prolific, but also he created a lot of these things that a lot of other B movies did successfully sometimes.
Oh yeah, he invented so much of this stuff. Again, the people that just some of the people he started with: Francis Ford Coppola, Ron Howard, Martin Scorsese, Jonathan Demme, John Sayles, James Cameron. It's really just some of the other people he worked with: Peter Bogdanovich, Armando Lanes Acosta, Paul Bartel, Donald Jackson, Gail Ann Hurd, it's Joe Dante.
Wow.
It's insane. Like, it's insane how many people like he worked with that he. They called it the Corman Film School, but I think he kind of comes like, probably my favorite old school director is John Huston, because he could do, and he took the script and he shot the script. He shot the story, and of course everything about it is technically sublime. Like the story, but the storytelling is just so great in any John Huston movie, the acting, everything, but it's just like, it's so organic and so complete in and of itself. And I think Corman had a lot of the same sensibilities, where he wanted to tell the story. There's a lot about Masque of Red Death is incredibly flashy and visual, but it's mostly he's just shooting the movie as you did in those times. Like you put the camera down, and you shot the movie. One thing about the set that I noticed, though, like they have this grand ballroom where the final mask takes place, and it was a practical set. And they have these rooms that are off at these colored rooms. You're so like, every time they go through these, one is yellow, one is purple, then white, then black, and it's just wow, it's so stunning. But there's a practical set, and there's one shot where you see Juliana come running out of the yellow room and then around the ballroom and then up the stairs, and it's like, you would never see that shot in a film today, because they wouldn't build a set that big. They do it all in CGI, and to have like just this, the sense of space, the sense of, interconnectedness of it was just so so unusual that you just don't see it now, because, they build most of the sets just in CGI now. So it's just refreshing. He made the best of everything, all the tools that he had.
Right. What I really liked about it too was and I looked it up, I guess it became a thing of his, the sort of psychedelic type dream sequences. So there were a couple moments where there was almost like a dance, and that was one of the very end became this very grim ballet, it seemed. But the Juliana, before she gets murdered by his pet falcon, she has this psychedelic dream sequence where like different like periods of time are represented. These people are coming to kill her or whatever like that. And that was very like immediately, of course, me being the former musical theater actor, I'm like, oh, that's Oklahoma Dream Ballet. Like I wonder if he was a big musical fan. Maybe he got it. Maybe that was one of his like, I like that. I'm gonna use that in my movies. So I thought that was really well done. And then, like I said, the very ending, where people are just slowly turning and getting the plague, and it becomes this very weird and eerie sort of ballet in a sense. As Prosper's walking through, and they're all surrounding him, and it's just like, it's really beautifully done. I thought it was really great.
Yeah, Edie, any other thoughts? And Edie,
I think, in terms of that moment at the end, the thing that jumped out at me was like, this is a bad night at Coachella. It's like trying to
bad
fight
trip,
through the crowd, and no one's letting him get anywhere. And it's like, oh, this is the worst.
Like, I gotta use the bathroom. Oh my God.
I know. And I mean, the parallels are kind of wonderful. I was saying, like, at one point, you can't fault, Prospero's quarantine protocol. Like, he does not let anyone in that castle after he closes the door.
Oh, yeah.
He's very into the social distancing. Like,
You know what?
He's
I
just
thought
like,
the same thing.
no. Yeah, like he's really, he's keeping his pod, which is arguably a larger pod than one should have during a pandemic. But like,
he does kill a noble friend who tries to get in. He's like, nope, kill him.
No, you have been exposed to this. You did not social distance.
That's right. You didn't follow the rules. He said. I was like, rock on.
Yeah, it's like even Satanists can follow basic guidelines for pandemic.
Yeah.
You know, like, we have to get with the times.
For real. It was, I did like, and because, when we started watching this, it's Masque of the Red Death. And people have referenced Masque of the Red Death in talking about the sort of political landscape of this pandemic and America specifically. And so when we go into that bathroom and we see the shot of Jane Asher in the bathtub, it is such a Mar-a-Lago bathtub.
Oh my God, I thought the same thing. It's like, man, this is Mar-a-Lago. This is, if someone has not made some comic book or about Masque of the Mar-a-Lago of the Red Death, I mean, it's just, it writes itself, really.
Yeah. Waiting to happen.
Yeah.
So I love that. What I will say is the other thing I noticed was the Bluebeard reference. They're referencing Edgar Allan Poe stories, of course, but then there's the whole Bluebeard thing they put in there where he's showing her the rooms and he's saying, but you can't go in this room. You can't go in what ends up being the black room with the red window.
Right.
And then she ends up waking up in the middle of the night in a dreamlike state where all those curtains are billowing like it's a Bonnie Tyler video from the 80s. I just kept waiting, total eclipse.
Oh man, it was totally total eclipse.
Total eclipse of my soul.
Yeah.
And she sort of wanders out in this state and sort of starts going through these rooms and feels drawn to look at them. And that's a super Bluebeardy kind of thing.
Absolutely. Yeah. 100%.
I'm a huge fan of ghost stories. That was the first horror I loved. I started looking up like ghost story compilations when I was maybe in like second grade or something, and scaring people, reading them out loud on the bus home, and so that was great. And then I was like, but there's no repercussions for her breaking that rule. She goes into the black room. We see that Vincent Price is sleeping in a coffin, which is amazing. There's no explanation.
What's up with
why
Juliana? What's up with? Do they explain why Juliana's just sort of in a stasis state? Like, is it explained? Like, she's like, is she
just
asleep?
There? Yeah.
Is she just staring? Yeah. It's such a weird moment. She's like,
is
she
frozen?
Yeah.
But when Juliana goes into the black room for the first time, I feel like when Vincent Price said, "You can't go in there," he was really saying, "You can. I just want to see if you'll actually
Francesca,
do it."
you mean? Okay, Francesca.
Tempting her.
Yeah.
But it was when the movie started and you see the Red Death like sitting on the ground in the tree, and then at the end when you see all of these other hooded figures. I remember that I read that the movie didn't come out earlier because Corman was scared that they would say that it was a seventh seal.
Oh yeah, I read that. Yeah.
And fine, the beginning and the end, sure, you have some images that you can say like, yeah, this kind of looks like a scene from that, but the rest of the movie is completely different.
I will say though that the ending, I mean, was he ripping off Ingmar Bergman? Maybe. I mean, the Seventh Seal was huge then. European cinema was huge, and in the 60s really, burst on people's minds. But again, when I saw this in the context of like Chiller Theater or this horror, schlocky, it'd be like The Creeping Terror. I mean, there was this other movie with that Vincent Price starred in that, there's this horrible thing and it turns out it's like this giant frog hopping around. And, a lot of these movies were really schlocky. And I guess just really realized this just now until I'm talking about it. I guess another reason why it really impressed me when I saw it was that ending, because all of a sudden it just had this really cosmic, mystical, like most horror movies are really about the visceral in the moment, but this Masque of the Red Death pulled it back to make it this cosmic thing. And like when you see all at the end, all these hooded figures who are represent different plagues, like it's like the witches in Macbeth. They're meeting up. Oh, how many people did you kill? Well,
I
Yeah,
love
yeah,
that.
100,000
Talking.
souls have seen, have I visited? And the other guy's like, oh, I'm really tuckered out. I mean, he doesn't say that. It's all much more poetic, but he's just like, I'm tired. It's really killed a lot of people today. So, and then and it's watching it again. I mean, I think in our current time, one thing that, we're so caught up in the moment of the horror that we're living through by having people running the country who don't care about whether we live or die. And very much like Prospero. But I think what's so, and I've encountered people who don't believe that masks work and who believe it's a hoax. And it's so disturbing. And I'm just like, do you people not understand that pandemics are part of human history?
Yeah.
And Masque of the Red Death, both the Poe version and the Corman version, are both references to this, that they're smart enough to know that we have to deal with these illnesses, these pandemics. It's not, we didn't make it up. We didn't make it up. And that last scene where, there's someone in yellow, that's the yellow plague, someone in red death. And, these different, they all have a different color because they represent
United colors of disease Benetton.
Yes.
They all come out.
And the blue, somebody in blue, the bubonic plague, and
no, it's great.
And it's just a reminder that this is real life, not some political hoax. Jesus.
Well, at the beginning of the century, with the whole Spanish flu situation, I mean, that was beat by people having huge ventilation and classrooms outside. And, this is old wisdom that we're talking about, right? And masks. And anytime you see any movie or any story you read about a plague, people are covering their faces with masks. Yeah. And I mean, they thought there were like humors, that needed to be like balanced and auras. But I mean, if you think about germ spread, it's not that far off. Like they were kind of in the realm of understanding. And so, it's people who are really divorced from their own history that I think get pulled in by this. And I think also just the fear. I think it's a rejection. They don't want to believe that this is the reality. It's too horrifying to contemplate. So I'm just going to stand here and be like, nope, denial.
Well, even like back then, like there are pictures of deniers back then, but obviously with the social media, it spread out even more. So if we didn't have social media, maybe we wouldn't have as much. But it's like, for sure, there's idiots throughout time, of course. So
I was
constant idiots throughout time.
I was reminded by I think we're now at the stage where the coronavirus is spreading more within family gatherings and small gatherings, right? Yeah. So I kind of felt like the movie, even back in the 60s, was saying, so if we're off in a pandemic, just going to a castle with your close friends isn't going to cut it.
No.
Right.
You still have to be a little bit more responsible than just going to a castle and not following any other guidelines.
Yeah.
So, it's like a lot of people here think that if, you pack your apartment up to the square inch with people that you like and you're all friends, then no one's going to get infected. That's the same thing as Red Death. That's why, the kind of things you can pull from that movie to today, like very few other horror movies are able to make.
I mean, they were all wearing masks, granted they were face masks, but whatever. It's cool.
Well, it's funny because the title, the Masque of the Red Death. I mean, masquerade. I mean, wearing a mask was the tradition of this. And then at the last scene, I do love where, by the way, one of the horrible sins that the people in this movie commit is cultural appropriation because they're dressing up in all these costumes. Okay.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. That's a moment.
Yes. So, and Vincent Price is wearing like this, Arabic costume. Yeah. He's dressed as the Arab. but Jane Asher had that cute little mask on. Oh, she's so
Yeah.
cute.
so
Oh,
cute in
she's
this
so
movie.
cute. By the way, she Jane Asher famous. She with Paul McCartney, and then she says but then she went on and married Gerald Scarfe, the artist. So good for him. And then people would still ask her about Paul McCartney. She's like, "Come on, I've been married for 40 years. Will you stop asking me about Paul McCartney?" But he did write some of his best songs about her. So she was amused. But yeah, she has a cute little mask, and then I
wonder if Sarah standing there was about her, because she's pretty young. She's
just
17. You know what I mean?
I think Chuck Berry wrote that song.
Oh, sorry, you're right.
Yeah. But of course, he liked him even younger. So
it's true.
Yeah. But yeah, like in the last scene, and the last segment of the when we see the mask, I haven't talked about the thing that's the most disturbing. Everybody's always dressing up and covering themselves, and so the
Hop Toad in the movie.
Toad.
And what's his name? Alfredo. He's like the really evil, leering child molester.
Yeah.
And he persuades him to dress up as an ape. And
he gets his revenge.
And he gets his revenge, but there's this whole scene where he's dressed as the ape, and he's molesting some woman. And now as a kid, this was the thing that upset me, disturbed me the most. Is like he ties him up and then sets him on fire.
Yeah, Hop Toad gets revenge, and that's directly from the original Hop for story.
But visually it's just horrifying. And then we see the smoldering mess of the man burned to death in the ape
and
suit.
Prospero's delighted.
And he's like, clean up that mess. How can we be expected to dance with that there?
Just give him a tip. Give him some money because he provided such a great entertainment in burning this guy to death in front of all of us.
Didn't care as his friend. He's like, whatever. It made me laugh. I dig it.
Cool.
Yeah.
I was actually thinking that it was a movie in the 60s. I was like, oh, they're gonna probably hang him or something, and we're gonna see it off screen. And then when they set him on fire,
I was like, woof.
I was like, whoa. And I remember, which kind of disturbed me as well, saying, it would be cool if they burn him up, but they're not going to do that because it's the 1960s movie. And then they burn him up, and I was also disturbed by that. And I love that actor, Peter McGee.
Patrick McGee.
Patrick McGee. Yeah. Which was hard to see him as a bad guy here, because I remember him in Tales from the Crypt, the original anthology. He plays a blind man that creates a maze, a torture maze for a person in their home that tortures them. So he tortures them in reverse, and it's insane. But he's kind of like the good guy.
The Saw franchise.
Yeah.
Basically.
That
is new.
What I thought was interesting at the end too, when they all come together and they talk about the different deaths, who they've killed, how many they've killed. They do have it's a odd thing. I'm not sure if I like it or not. Where it's like they're like, oh, but we did save a few. So it's like, so Francesca and Gino survived, and then the little girl who actually Prospero spared, surprisingly, some old lady and some old man, and then one other person, and Hop Toad in Tripetta, is that her name or something like that? The girl. Esmeralda, Tripetta in the original story,
But not the little kid. Little kid dies, because there's that moment where what's his name? Her boyfriend.
Gino.
Boyfriend.
Hey, Gino.
Oh, Gino.
Hunky Gino. Yes.
Oh, Gino tries to just scram, and he picks up a kid that is just wandering around this party, and is like, I'm gonna get out.
Oh, right.
And then they're like, no, you're not taking that kid. What are you doing?
Yeah.
And then the place, just everyone red deaths it up, and they don't talk about him at the end. So that kid totally died in that castle.
That's true. That's true.
Amidst the murder ballet.
The murder ballet. That's great. I wonder if that Corman wanted to have a little sliver of hope, let's just say a few of them survived, whatever.
Right.
But we don't see it, which is part of what makes this movie kind of like a gut punch,
But he does say it, he flat out says no.
No, he says it, but it's still, it's like you can hear it and you're like, oh, okay. But we don't see it. It's not quite as
true. We see the little girl at the end.
Playing
the tarot card with him.
Playing with death. Which is great. But that is kind of the seventh seal, because they're playing chess with.
Yeah. But at the end, when they're showing off how many people they killed, since they had just murdered everyone in the ball in Vincent Price's castle, I kind of thought that they were also gloating about other bad, rich, powerful Satanists that they killed.
Oh, nice.
More than
Yeah.
just
Cool.
Maybe that was me trying to like say, okay, these
Nice.
guys aren't that bad.
Yeah.
They're
Yeah.
just killing Satanists.
Yeah,
That's
it's
it.
fine.
Yeah,
It's
just
fine.
clean it, just a little, little tie there, just
All
clean it
those
up,
people in the town, something
Yeah.
was wrong with them.
taking out the
clearly.
trash.
For sure.
You know.
For
You
sure.
know. Oh, and one more shout out, Hazel Court. I mean, she's a
It's Juliana. Yeah,
dream
she's great.
queen. But she's
She's
a
great.
horror film classic veteran. She was in so many other movies. It was a English actress, and
She's a boss in this film.
she's the
dope.
boss.
Yeah.
Yeah. And of course Jane Asher was
Yeah.
like an ingenue,
Yeah.
and had this kind of famous life. But she's still around. She still works as acting. So she
Oh,
went on.
nice.
Yeah, she had a nice career, or is having a nice career.
Mhm.
And Vincent Price, born in St. Louis. He's not English, but he has that
Mhm.
kind of mid-Atlantic fake
Right.
English
Just that
accent.
cadence. Yeah.
Yeah.
Did he have
Yeah.
that dialect coach
Yeah,
that like
yes.
everybody worked with?
Like
Yeah.
you hear him narrating everything. I'd like, yeah, please, absolutely.
Yeah, I know.
Um,
I know. So just a good fun. I feel like this movie, and I have seen it this way, is like if you're out on Halloween, especially if Halloween is on a weeknight, and you go out and you come home and you bed out and you're in your costume, and then you're like, I'm gonna watch something spooky, and if you turn on the TV and Mask of the Red Death is on, it's perfect.
there you go.
Yeah.
Did you see the sequel? Not sequels, the couple remakes they have. I didn't
No.
watch them, but there's one in '89 that Corman produced but didn't direct that starred Adrian Paul. And there's clips of it online. I saw bits of it. I was like, but then there's another one which is only clips available. I think '91 that starred Frank Stallone. And there's the scene online you got to watch where it's like they're at the party. It's like a rock band playing, and it's a more modern take on it. It's horrible, but it's hilarious. So that's really funny.
One choice I will say that I did not understand was the fringe mask on the Red Death.
Oh, right, yeah.
When he comes through and he's got that weird fringe that I was like, Wilford Brimley?
Oh, he was dressing up for the masquerade too.
The Red Death is diabetes. I am the walrus.
Nice.
Like it was just weird, and you saw it move when he talked. He was like, blah, blah, blah. Like
it's like Cesar Romero was the Joker, right?
Yeah, it was. It was very strange. And
funny.
if you read in the original story, it's meant to be that he's wearing a mask that is fashioned after what you look like when the Red Death gets you. So it's like a twisted face with like blood on it.
Yeah.
And I was like, why would you not do that? I thought it was a very odd choice, and I'm wondering why they went with that.
I think they probably wanted that because they wanted that surprise reveal where it's like Vincent Price sees himself as the Red Death, all covered in red. Maybe that's why.
Maybe. I mean, you could still take it off and like have your
you're right.
Your Luke seeing his face beneath Vader's mask moment. You've still got it. But that was a very strange choice for me because I felt like it took away from how scary he was. And I also thought it was an interesting choice for him to ban the wearing of red in the script because that's not in the story at all. So like they're kind of hinting, they're doing a little foreshadowing there so that when the red comes on, I guess you really see it. But
I don't know, Ricky, did you have any thoughts about that mask? Because I have a theory.
Well, any mask with those little things like dangling freaked me out. So
there you go.
Yeah.
It didn't have to do with the Red Death in particular. It's just that type of thing. That even in curtains, I don't like them.
I'm right there. Okay, high five, right? Because I'll tell you, I remember one time again. I love Halloween. We went to it was like a carnival. We went to the House of Horrors, and like me and my grandfather went, and my grandfather just said what he, I don't want to say like he was the pappy who spoke out. I mean, he was just like really smart. And so we go, and like when you go to those things touch your face, right? And then after it came out, my grandfather said, can you imagine how many other people face this? Gross. And I was like, oh my God. So yeah, I'm with Ricky. I feel like the little dangly fringe was like, Yog Shughoth or something, like a lot of times horror monsters have some kind of maw that's just like creepy crawly tentacles. And it was just like tendrils. Yeah.
I also thought, sorry.
No, go on.
I also thought that when the red guy comes in, a lot of people kind of just accept it like, oh, look, the devil finally made it.
Yeah.
Party can now start.
Yeah. Vince Price is like, oh, you
Let's
must be
get this
Agent
party started quickly.
Part of this, where he's just like, welcome, you're clearly Death's emissary, and like I did my job, and like doesn't realize that it's the Red Death, and he is just embracing him because hail Satan. And like that was actually kind of a cool moment, because then it's like, oh, guess what? No.
Yeah.
You know,
Sorry.
I like that.
Yeah, for sure.
Did
you read? There's actually this one. I'd be very curious to see that apparently Akira Kurosawa wrote a screenplay version, and there's a company in China that's trying. They've had plans for years to produce, and they want to try and put it. Well, they were going to originally try to put it out this year, but who knows? Like, I'd love to see Akira Kurosawa screenplay of this to see how he handles it. That'd be amazing.
Wow. Yeah.
But as we said, this besides remakes and sequels, it's heavily. There's so many, like there's some great audio recordings. The Basil Rathbone one is great of the original story. So many comics, comics, and probably one of the best in recent years I love was the Richard Corman Poe stuff, and he does Masque of the Red Death, and it's so beautiful and so it's so.
I believe didn't Wendy Pini do any of that?
Of ElfQuest fame. Yeah, she did a webcomic with music, and she's been actually wanting it for years. I don't know if she's given up it or not, but wanted to turn to a stage or a screen or something like that, to TV show or something like that.
And it's kind of like a yaoi version of it.
Yes.
Too. Yeah, it's a yaoi version.
Crossbow has like a male lover and all this other stuff, and it's like, I was read up on that. I was like, that's really interesting.
Yeah, I saw a thing. There was a creepy issue of Creepy magazine. Issue 11 that was like a bunch of different horror stories were in it, and Hop Frog was in there. And
cool.
Archie Goodwin wrote a bunch of them. He wrote Hop Frog, and it was Reed Crandall on art. But like, there's a Ditko in there too that Archie Goodwin did. But about a beast man. I don't think it's not a Poe, but there's like that issue 11 has a bunch of like horror, and it's just it's so nice that pre Comics Code Red Scare stuff. There's just a real plethora of this kind of like weird, creepy stuff that's brought to life in comics, and it's like you can communicate so much. Like, my gateway book for scary stories was Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, which I read at maybe 8, and the art in that is just like out of this world. Stephen Gamble and Alvin Schwartz did that book, and Guillermo del Toro, of course. I still haven't seen the movie that he did of it, but those images are like burned into my brain, and it's just, they're so unsettling. You read the story, and I feel like art, drawn art, just is so good at letting you fill in the gaps with your imagination. Like you were saying before, Heidi, you're sort of co-creating the horror. But what's great about this movie is it has a lot of weird imagery that it does not explain. So you kind of get a similar experience, I feel like, in a lot of places.
And
great to scare yourself.
And in terms of the Comics Code, the good thing about Edgar Allan Poe is that his stories aren't gory. So a lot of people could see them as Comics Code friendly, but I always see like Poe as this kind of like Trojan horse into horror. Like, oh, this isn't that gory, but then there's someone buried underneath the
sticks with you.
It's great literature, right? So you can totally get away with reading it. That's so true, Ricky.
Yeah, and I don't know if you guys know about Edogawa Rampo. He's a Japanese. Well, the Japanese version of Edgar Allan Poe, and Edogawa Rampo is actually Edgar Allan Poe in Japanese.
Oh my God.
But I am
that's amazing.
99% sure. And so
that's great.
Through him, a lot of people start getting to know Edgar Allan Poe a lot more. And just as Edgar Allan Poe did with the detective story, Edogawa Rampo is kind of like also credited for bringing that into Japan. And it was all based on, Edgar Allan Poe's stories that he loved, that he didn't just remake. He just made stories in the same vein. So he has this one, I'm pretty sure you might have seen the one about the chair. That's a guy who sends another woman like this beautiful chair, this gigantic, and comes with a letter. And the letter says basically, so I might be inside the chair or not. You might be sitting on me right now. I don't know.
Creepy.
And then, but it's written in a very, it's not necessarily like vulgar or extreme. It's just written in a very playful and creepy sensibility more than just to gross you out or to make you feel uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Well, of course, Stephen King said there was terror, horror, and the gross out. So, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, you even see it in like, I mean, it's everywhere. It's like this comics, TV, film. Like, I mean, what is it? Phantom of the Opera has a scene where like basically the Masque of the Red Death shows up, you know, and stuff. But yeah, if you indulge, I could show you a couple pictures of when I played Prospero in this.
Yes, of
this,
course.
Please. Oh my goodness.
In this terrible musical I did. So the idea was great. It was like the idea, so that you they're really grainy, because I actually found the video of it.
Oh my God.
I had this glorious cape.
Wow.
Holy cow.
Over here, but look at I had my hair down to I had my hair down to my butt, and look, I flourished that cape. Look at that.
Oh my God.
You can even see I did a couple little, there's a little video here I could show you as well.
Yes.
See me, no sound. Oops, sorry. That's my that's my casting we're gonna get to in a second. Oh, oops, screen sharing has stopped. Why? No.
Oh no.
We're gonna go back there. There we go. Okay, so where is it? Oh, here we go.
Oh my God.
Oh, you ready?
Does this? I don't know if this will work, but
can you see it or no? Is it working?
Yeah, we can.
Yeah, you have to share video in a different way.
Oh, okay. So you can't really see it. Okay.
All right. Well, you know what? Let's put that. Well, you know what? We'll put a little link to that down in the. Okay, now did you do recasting for this?
I did do recasting. So
oh my God.
So I always do, Edie, you guys always do a modern day recasting of things, and usually Asian because Asian. I'm Asian, you know, but always ethnic. So if we did, we were gonna go with. Let me know if you see these good.
No, you gotta go out. You know what? Go out and come back in, and
Okay, there we go. Yeah, that's what happened last time. Let me share again.
But you know, we're getting better and better. Look, we're not quite up to, you know.
How's that?
Grace Randolph. No.
Why is this not working?
Well, anyway, we can see the small picture, and Jason Scott
How about now?
No.
Let's try again. Oh, it keeps stopping my screen sharing. That's weird. All right, let me try this again.
So this is a play that you're recasting?
The movie. No, the movie. I'm recasting the whole movie. So,
yeah, because one of our conceits here is that Jimmy always recasts everything with Asian, and it's not.
Don't know.
Anyway. But anyway, we can see the small picture.
So sorry. So it's Jason Scott Lee. I have him as if this will help at all, but Jason Scott Lee as the Prince Prospero, which you can't really see too well. God damn it! Like I figured this out last week. Anyway, so just Lee, because I think he has a great look to him. And
well, you know what? Go out of this view and then come back into this view, and it should work.
Go out of what view?
This view. You changed your view.
Right. Go to this one?
Yeah. No. Go back to the old view.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Now go out and come back in.
Try it one more time. It stopped as the shared window was closed. Okay. So
that's fine. You guys reopen.
Okay. Then reopen. I reopen the thing. Sorry, viewers and listeners, that I'm an idiot, but
Yeah. Well.
Okay. Let's try it again.
Yeah. Try this view.
I don't get it. I don't know why.
I don't know why either.
Anyway, so Jason Scott Lee's Prospero. So let's quickly go through this. So
the smaller view.
Yeah. Let's go to the smaller view, you said?
Yeah.
Like that?
Yes, there you go. At least we can see them.
Okay. So Lee Jung as Juliana. She's in the new sequel to Train to Busan, which we're covering next week.
Oh yeah, I can't wait.
She's fantastic, and she'd be great as Juliana. I think she's also like introduced techno to the Korean world back in the day. She's like, and then after her, we're gonna have as the young, beautiful Francesca. This is Chua Yewan. Her stage name is Ari. She's an actress, but mostly known in the K-pop group Oh My Girl. She's in. So she'd be a cute little Francesca. And then we need a hunky guy for Gino. Let's go to my regular Charles Melton, who's Reggie on Riverdale. It'd be great in those fight scenes, of course. And then as Ludovico, the father, John Cho. John Cho be the father. Why not? Be great. And then as the creepy Alfredo, Song Kang-ho, who was the lead in Parasite.
Yep.
Yes.
It'd be great. Song Kang-ho. And then this would be directed by Hiro Murai, who you may. I can top that there. He's mostly does TV, but he works a lot with Donald Glover. He's directed a lot of Atlanta episodes, and even directed the famous "This Is America" video as well. So that's my little modern day recasting there. One day I want to figure out
well, Jimmy, one of your dreams has come true.
What's
because they are making. They did announce that they're making a Willow. They're doing Willow for TV, and isn't it John Chu who's doing it, right?
I can't remember.
Well, no, I'm going to look it up because I know he is a Asian filmmaker.
Yeah.
Well,
John Chu did Crazy Rich Asians.
Crazy Rich Asians.
John M. Chu. Yeah. John Chu, Crazy Rich Asians. John Chu is going to be the direct and showrunner for for Willow. So Jimmy, your dream has come true.
That's right.
At least in the one. Okay. Right. So this Comic Beat Insider is working.
That's right. There you go. Yeah, it was like instead of having such,
you're manifesting, Jimmy.
Completely white cast and white directors.
Well, the first off, I mean, we had a whole episode about Willow, so that's just a little callback, a little follow up, I guess. And we said they should definitely do a TV show, and hopefully with John Chu doing it, it'll be a little more diverse because that was the one thing we all loved Willow, but could have been a little more. Could have had,
absolutely.
A little not just interspecies, but
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Absolutely, for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, thanks for getting us to watch because I'd never seen it, so I was really glad I got to see this because I am a big Poe fan. So
well, awesome, and I'm going to definitely try to watch some of the other ones because, I think maybe on Halloween because, I'm going to be home on Halloween. I mean, I'm sure I'll walk. It's a Saturday, so it's a little risky to go outside, but I'm sure I'll put on some kind of mask and walk around outside, and then, But like I said, these movies are just great to just have on TV, and you watch them and you feel spooky inside.
Yeah. For sure. Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah, no, this was really cool. I was really excited to watch it. Anything that's like classic horror I haven't seen that has a cult status is just exciting.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you could join us officially this time, Edie.
Yes.
You've had like a guest.
It's nice to be here and have it be planned and not just like I'm crashing.
I know, but
that was great though. I love
that was awesome.
That
Ricky, I don't know if you saw, but Edie crashed our Chasing Amy, like she was getting her flu shot or something.
I was getting a COVID test and a flu shot. My COVID test came back negative.
Oh yeah.
Yay. And flu shot. Yep. And I was standing outside a transportation bus terminal and talking to you guys. But yeah, no, this was like such a pleasure and so much fun to do. So
excellent.
Of course, having me back.
Of course, Ricky, it's always a pleasure to have you on especially for our horror. You're the horror meister.
Yeah, it's nice to meet you, fellow beat person. I don't think I've ever seen your face moving.
Oh, same here.
Moving.
Yeah.
I always love
lots of slack, but that's not the same.
Exactly. No, I just love talking horror to people that will listen to me, not just people who are like, looking at their phones when I'm waxing poetically about Roger Corman and Larry Cohen.
Also, if you guys ever do Blair Witch Project, let me know.
Right on.
Oh, okay.
If you want to hear me get like Chasing Amy level nerdy on the film, that's
I'm gonna jump on that bandwagon as well because I saw the Sci-Fi Channel documentary and I went to the movie theater thinking it was real, and I was scared beyond imagination. Like the Blair Witch was living behind.
Understandable.
My house.
Wow.
All right. Well, look, here's a vow. Hopefully a year from now, life will be a little different. Okay.
Yeah.
But I mean, Jimmy and I haven't even talked about it, but we're having such a blast doing this. I'm sure we'll be doing Comic Beat Insider in some format in a year's time. So now Horror Month 2021.
There you go.
Reunion.
Meanwhile, we got one more left. Next week, we're going to do the Train to Busan. It's a trilogy now because if you didn't see Train to Busan, you should. It's amazing South Korean zombie flick. Tons of buzz. But also there's an animated prequel that came out the year after. It's on Amazon and also I think on YouTube called Soul Station, as in the city Seoul, which is great. And then the sequel actually came out this year in theaters. Why? I don't know. But it's out right now. It's been out for a few months, called Peninsula, and they luckily sent me a review screener. So we're going to discuss that on our panel next week. So,
and I'm super excited, actually, Jimmy. I'm super excited because we've looked at so many old school things. I'm actually really excited to look at something that's totally contemporary.
Yeah.
So it's nice to compare.
And one of our panelists is my friend Insu, who's from Busan. So that's awesome. Yeah.
Good.
Get a cool, baby. Got a cool. Yeah.
Good call. All right. Well, that's next week. Well, until next week, I am Heidi MacDonald, the editor of The Beat, and you can find me on social media at Comixace, COMIXACE, in all social media.
And I'm Jimmy Aquino with Comic News Insider at comicnewsinsider.com. Weekly, sometimes multiple weekly shows. You can find me all over social media at Jimmy Aquino, JIMMYAQUINO.
I'm Edie Nugent, freelancer at large, also proud Beat staff member. You can find me on Facebook, Edie Nugent, but also Twitter at Edie Helena. That's like Eddie with one D, Helen with an A, Edie Helena, and I'm on Instagram at Pride Kitty, like Kitty Pryde from the X-Men, but backwards. And I have, if you just Google Edie Nugent, you'll find my writing portfolio online too. You can read all this.
Excellent.
I'm gonna do that as well. Find me on Google as Ricardo Serrano and everything.
I want to listen to your podcast. It sounds so good.
You know Spanish?
Oh gosh, it's all in Spanish. Well, I'm learning it, so that'll be good for me.
It's excellent practice. And if you guys want to talk Spanish and comics as well, I'm your guy. You're welcome as guest whenever you want.
All right, awesome. Well, listen, until next time, as we continue Horror Month at Comic Beat Insider. Thank you for coming, everybody. Until next time.
Bye.
Okay. Oops. Stop. Wait. See, I fucked it up. I have to.